Ready to create an amazing story?
Choose a book from one of these real-life writing heroes
to make a new story just like theirs.
Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston wrote all kinds of stories,
and she shared them with people all around the world.
Hey, let's create a sharing story about Brad. Brad was writing his new comic book alone in the playground. Brad was writing his new comic book alone in the playground. When suddenly Brad saw a lonely marshmallow.
Aw, poor lonely guy.
So, Brad decided to share his comic book about Bike Man, Agent Chaos. Reading Brad's comic book together made it so happy.
Sharing makes everything better.
So then they decided to write a new story. Make strawberry jam. Eat ice cream.
That story was awesome!
The end.
Thanks for telling an awesome sharing story about me.
Stories are best when you share them with others.
Just like Zora Neale Hurston.
Charles Dickens.
Charles Dickens used his imagination to write great stories.
Stories that lots of people still love today.
Ooh, let's create a story about Brad's imagination. One day, Brad was laying down on his couch. When suddenly, Brad imagined it was a castle. And Brad imagined he was in the ocean, a baseball, the clouds, outer space. And Brad imagined he was in outer space. Then Brad imagined he saw balloons.
Whoa, now that's using your imagination.
And Brad imagined he was holding a lollipop.
Whew, my imagination is exhausting.
So, Brad imagined he was relaxing in his bedroom.
Ooh, now there's a story I loved.
The end.
Thanks for telling such a silly story about my imagination.
Using your imagination makes everything more fun.
Just like Charles Dickens. Nellie Bly.
Nellie Bly wrote about some big and sometimes scary adventures she went on.
Nellie was bold. That means she was brave and willing to try new things.
Hey, let's create a story about Yadina being bold. At the playground, Yadina was too scared to try the monkey bars, so she went on the swing. When suddenly, Dr. Zoom was carried away by a gust of wind.
Hang on, Dr. Zoom!
Yadina had to be bold and chase after Dr. Zoom using her roller skates, bicycle, jetpack, ship. Yadina had to be bold and chase after Dr. Zoom using her roller skates, Then Dr. Zoom landed on top of a spaghetti mountain, a tower, the moon, a pyramid, a tower. Then Dr. Zoom landed on top of a tower. To save Dr. Zoom, Yadina had to be bold and climb up the pizza stairs. To save Dr. Zoom, Yadina had to be bold and climb up the pizza stairs.
Yadina, I knew you could do it!
To celebrate rescuing Dr. Zoom, she gave her best turtle friend a big hug. To celebrate rescuing Dr. Zoom, she gave her best turtle friend a big hug.
What a turtle-tastic story!
The end.
Thanks for telling such a cool story about me being bold.
When you really want to do something, be bold.
Just like Nellie Bly. Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley used her imagination to write stories that were totally different from everybody else's.
Some of her stories were spooky.
Ooh, let's create a story about Xavier. Your way. Xavier was walking in the woods when suddenly something happened that was very spooky. Xavier was walking in the woods when suddenly something happened that was very spooky. He came face to face with a supervillain. He came face to face with a supervillain. At first, Xavier tried to hide. At first, Xavier tried to hide. But then, Xavier decided to be brave. But then, Xavier decided to be brave.
Go, Xavier!
Xavier stood bravely, holding a wand. Xavier stood bravely, holding a wand. To Xavier's surprise, the supervillain said, "Let's be friends. Let's boogie." To Xavier's surprise, the supervillain said, "Let's boogie."
Wow! Didn't see that coming.
The end.
Thanks for making an amazing story about me.
Your own way.
Just like Mary Shelley.
The Bronte sisters. The Bronte sisters.
The Bronte sisters were creative people who loved to pretend.
Charlotte, Emily, and Anne wrote lots of great stories.
Hey, let's create a story about us pretending. One rainy day, Yadina pretended to be a diver, an astronaut, a ringmaster, a bug, an astronaut. One rainy day, Yadina pretended to be an astronaut. And Xavier pretended to be a baseball player, a pirate. And Xavier pretended to be a pirate. Yadina and Xavier pretended they were inside a library, a castle, a pizza palace, a garden, a castle. Yadina and Xavier pretended they were inside a castle. When suddenly, they pretended the floor turned into ice, pudding, quicksand, lava. When suddenly, they pretended the floor turned into lava. I'll save them. So then, Brad pretended to rescue his friends as dun-dun-dun, Rad Brad, a butterfly bike man. So then, Brad pretended to rescue his friends as dun-dun-dun, bike man.
Yay, Brad, our brave hero!
Xavier and Yadina were proud to have such a brave friend as they climbed aboard Brad's rescue bicycle, dinosaur, boat, balloon. Xavier and Yadina were proud to have such a brave friend as they climbed aboard Brad's rescue balloon.
That was amazing!
The end.
Thanks for telling such a surprising story about us.
And pretending some amazing things.
Just like the Bronte sisters.